Koku. We asked Christoph how he would approach a fragrance designed to recall the Art Deco period of New York.
First, I would think of a few elements that were very important at the time that could recreate the scent of the time. And I'm thinking about woods, but also metal. It's when a lot of great buildings were built. Stones also was very important. The fabric of the people, a lot of people were wearing hats. For me, it's very representative of those periods. For the people, Art Deco, that was the modern thing, that was optimistic. So I would get this feeling also to have something grand, inspiring. What ingredients, let's say, would I choose to include in this fragrance? It's like an obvious one is patchouli, which is a very elegant wood, has a little bit of a mystical side to it. Represent also the mustiness, I think, at the time that either the woods or the street had. Well, it turns out that carrot seed oil or absolute smells very nice of like a very blonde wood, a very elegant wood. Same, I would use algae absolute, seaweed absolute. And why? Because it gives to the wood a little je ne sais quoi, a little sense of mystery, not because it smells of the sea. If you use just a little bit, like a pinch of salt, it gives to the wood this edge and also a little metallic effect, and a metallic effect that fits with wood.
It's how you apply those ingredients to one another. That's where the true creativity comes in. You know?
You have to each time to try to be actually more clever than the ingredients. And I'm sure it's like a musician. You have to, at the end, be more clever than the instrument. Or the painter, you have to be more clever than the brush and the color. Or like a chef, I'm sure they go the same way. I have my cinnamon, I have my woods, I have the smokiness. How can I be in them, and how are they going to combine to have this or not to have that?
You take something that would rarely be used in a high concentration and use it in extraordinary concentration, sometimes 20 or 30 times more than would traditionally be found in a fragrance. And in those areas, some of the most unique and beautiful fragrances in the world have been designed in that way.
You're walking down the street, you're in a restaurant, and you smell a fragrance that you've created. How does that make you feel?
I was in an airport, in the Paris airport, and I saw a woman, a very sophisticated, elegant woman with leather boots up to here, and really unusually glamorous, walking by with my scent, with one of my scents. We entered the airplane, and for some reason, she was sitting right next to me, and I said, oh my God, God punished me to have made a fragrance so powerful. Now I'm going to have 8 hours. But she was so excited about it, because eventually I told her that, the fragrance you've been wearing is something I made. She was so excited about it. Like for 8 hours I heard about how her husband loved it, how her children loved it.
The fragrance industry directly employs about 7,000 people globally. But if you take the combination of all the consumer products that are touched and actually dependent on the technologies that fragrance brings, it rises into directly dependent jobs into the high hundreds of thousands.
That one little fragrance is really, really important in providing jobs for people and opportunity for people.
When we talk about sustainability, what is happening at the moment, perfumers and perfume houses are trying to cut the middlemen so that the farmers get more revenue on their crops. We also try to do contracts more and more that are long-term contracts, 3 years, 5 years, to guarantee a crop to a farmer. And this way we protect the farmer, the village, and we secure some productions. And this is what we call sustainability. You support families, you bring children to school in India thanks to some jasmine plantations, or you want the jasmine to be the best possible jasmine, so you help those villages to get water pumps.
The industry is challenged by the lack of understanding of fragrance and perfumery.
The industry is making an enormous effort to try to be safe for the consumers.
The Research Institute for Fragrance Materials main focus is looking at the safety of fragrance materials from the spectrum of human health use all the way through the environment, what happens to it when it gets into the environment. The Institute focuses on gathering all of the scientific literature on the material and evaluating all of the data through an independent expert panel. And then they provide guidance on how a material should be used. And all of the standards are available on the web.
Several years ago, we published what we call our ingredient palette. And that is a list of those materials that are in use commercially, that are in any fragrance worldwide. I think it's unnecessary to ask an artist to provide his recipe for anyone to see. What I think is fair is for the industry to communicate to the public the raw materials that may have been used.
We smell tons of things every day, concentrated things, much more concentrated than anything that's on the market because we have access to the pure things. So, and I've never heard that a perfumer died losing his nose. We would know, it's been thousands of years that there has been perfumers. And people have to know that the quantities you need to smell are tiny, tiny, tiny. Even when you smell something very pungent, you think there's a lot in the air or a lot on your skin. If you do the calculation, those quantities are so tiny, like negligible. And that's why we have a nose. It's to detect this thing before they become significant.
Consumers should always feel that they can enjoy fragrances without any kind of concern.
What would a world without fragrance be like?
Oh merde.
I think it would be very sad.
Black and white.
Black and white, yes.
I think a world without fragrance would be dull.
The whole world just, blah.
It would be generic.
Right.
It's awful. It's an awful thing.
No, it's hard for me because then I would take the happy part of things. So,
Yeah, I'm sure you've walked down the street and had an experience where it brought you back to your childhood. I don't think there's a person I know that hasn't had that experience where they don't even want the smelling, but they said, "Well, it smells like grandma." You can't identify the fragrance, but you identified the setting that you smell that. Those associations never ever leave your mind.
There's nothing else that I think I would ever want to do. I think this is like an art that I really love. I'd like to think that I excel at, and you never stop learning this craft, never.
how do we create? How are we inspired? The same way as a musician is inspired, the same way as a painter is inspired, the same way as a chef is inspired.
I think it has to make a deep impression on the person, either through memories or through the feelings that it evokes, make you either connect to something you loved, or connect to your past, or make you feel great, or give you an exhilarating feeling. Or, it has to have that kind of resonance.
When you eat, smell. When you drink something, smell. When you meet someone, we smell the person. There are many things. The nose is also teaching you something. It's talking to you.
It really does connect you to so much emotion, to so many different layers of life, that it's just something that I couldn't imagine anyone really living without. It's really, that's why it's a sense of pride and emotion for me and for a lot of people.